Hey everybody, Callum here, and welcome to my van, and also welcome to my beautiful home here on the Isle of Raasay, a little small island up here in the northwest of Scotland where the views are beautiful and the roads are terrible. Grid. Now, this van I purchased a couple of years ago. It's a 2018 Nissan NV200, and in those 2 years I've spent every waking moment and a lot of my money turning it from a base stock commercial van into this wonderful little miniature home on wheels that I've used for exploring all over the Scottish Highlands and Islands and for making videos. You might have seen this featured in quite a lot of my videos. It's where I do a lot of editing and I actually do quite a lot of recording my voiceovers. Now, I've had an amazing time with this van, converting it into something with a double bed, a full editing suite, all the storage I might need for the camera, all the space I might need for a dog, a girlfriend and myself, even a diesel heater for keeping me warm on those cold Scottish nights. And I'd like to tell you all about it, every quirk and feature, everything that I have built into it. And then also, I'd like to maybe tell you a little bit about why I'm thinking of selling it. So let's drive home, let me don my best jacket and I'll give you a tour. But first, I'd like to say a quick thank you to today's sponsor, Wondrium. See, when you're curling up in the back of a van after a long day of hiking or taking photos or driving, there's nothing better than being able to watch something or learn something. And with Wondrium, my loyal companion for the last couple of years, I have been able to do both. Wondrium is the streaming service where you can find the answer to just about anything in the form of short form and long form videos, tutorials, how-tos, travelogues, documentaries, and much, much more. Last summer, while I was travelling around in the van documenting Scottish castles and ruins, I was watching The Celtic World, one of the most detailed and extensive series on early Scottish history, and one I would highly recommend if you'd like to learn about Scottish Pictish roots. Another topic that Wondrium covers in really great detail is that of mental health. Mental health, depression, anxiety, these are tough things to talk about, but doing that, opening up about mental health, breaking the stigmas around it, helps us all. And Wondrium has over 240 lessons in mental health topics delivered by practicing psychologists, cognitive behavioural therapists, yoga instructors, and more. You guys know me, I love to learn. I've researched topics for this channel with Wondrium, and the constantly evolving library of content means you and your brain are going to love it. Wondrium makes for a fantastic gift for someone, but also the thing I love the most is how I can take it anywhere I want with me. When I'm sitting here in the evening in my van, I can be watching episodes on my computer, or if I want, I can download them to my phone. When I'm out hiking, I can listen to it like a podcast. Perhaps the best thing of all, however, is the fact that if you go to wondrium.com/Callum, you can get your own free trial. Thanks again, Wondrium, for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to my tour. I've got a lot to show you. So the big question is, why choose a Nissan NV200 as my van of choice for converting? Well, there was a few things. One of them, I got a good deal on it. This was a 2018 model. It still had 3 years left of its 5-year warranty when I purchased it. It only had about 56,000 miles and I got it for about £10,000. Now, after I bought it, the prices of vans and cars started shooting up. It's a lot of geese over there. Why is there so many geese over there in that one particular... There's no geese anywhere. There's no geese or birds kept like anywhere in Raasay apart from in that tiny bit of garden. Anyway, the other reason I bought this though is because the ergonomics of this van I think are the most advantageous for converting. I was looking at Volkswagen Caddies, Peugeot Partners, Citroën Berlingos, all car-derived vans, but I wanted something that was small like that, but also didn't lose too much of the space in the front. You see, something like a Volkswagen Caddy is about 4.5 metres long, but about half of that's just taken up by the cab and the big engine bay at the front. So in the back here, the maximum load length, the amount of space that you get basically from the bulkhead, the back of the seats, to the back door is only about 1.7 metres. Now this van is about 4.4 metres long, but you get a maximum load length of about 2 metres in the back. And that's because, as you can see, they've sort of compressed the cab and the engine bay. It's a bit more of a cab-over design. Now, it's not as drastic as my old Super Caddy, but what it means is that you benefit from getting all that extra space to play with in the back there. The other thing that I liked is that this thing has a full pass-through. That means that it's basically got 2 doors at the back. Now, I really liked that because what it meant is I could use this van as a regular works van. I could fill it with gear. If I needed to put a generator or a bunch of jerry cans, I could still throw them in here and take them out the other side, and I could confine all of the actual camper van stuff, the electricals, the workshop, all of the things that I'd be using for sleeping and camping and working, all of that could be stored back here. Now, as a result of the size and the dimensions of this van, you do have a slightly more elevated seating position. It feels more like you're sitting in an SUV than a car-derived van. I quite like that because I live on a very small remote island. It's all single track roads, and the roads that are here are all overgrown with bushes and ferns. You can see a little bit higher, which is quite nice. Also, I broke my hip a few years ago, so like an old man, I like sitting in a more upright seating position. But generally speaking, the interior here, I've not altered very much in my time converting it. What I'll do is I'll tell you more about, say, the head unit that I've added in, the phone connections, and the other little additions when we take it out for a drive. But the best thing about this, and again, something to consider if you're looking at a van to convert, is how easy you can get from here into the back. And as a result, one of my favorite parts of this is when I want to get into the back of this van, I can basically step here, climb through, and then be here in the back. Now, obviously, it's not the most stealthy setup because both the back doors are open, but it does give me a good opportunity to tell you all about this, the inside of the van. So let's have a look at this in a bit more detail. So before I tell you more about the features of this worktop and all the various things I've built into it, of which there are many, and of course this bed setup that I'm really proud of, I first want to tell you about my favorite thing in this whole van, which is actually the swivel passenger seat that you're sitting on right now. When I first bought this, it was very sparse. You couldn't even slide this seat forwards and backwards. But what we ended up doing was fitting this plate to the bottom, and what it allows you to do with basically just the turn of this latch is swing the entire seat around. And then what we did is we actually fitted universal sliders to the bottom of this, so it now does slide all the way back. You can actually move the seat as far back as you want, and you have this lovely lounge chair to sit on when you're in the back of the van. Easy. Now, I'm 5'10", but ow, don't show that. But even if you were taller than me, you'd be able to stretch out here pretty comfortably. And of course, like I say, you can lean this all the way back. You can see out of all these windows, which is quite nice. Obviously, there's no windows in the back of the van, so this is quite a good place to sit if you want some natural light. Now, there's one last addition to this that makes it even better, in my opinion, and it's all to do with this little bracket down here on the side. This is actually attached to the bulkhead where the metal bulkhead used to be, and this is where you fit the table. I actually took inspiration from my old 1989 Suzuki Super Carry, which had this lovely fold-away table that tucked into the cupboard, and you basically never know it was there. And I've done the same thing in here, but to get it, I've got to go to the back door, so I'll meet you there. So you might be able to see, or you might have spotted already, but on the back door here, I actually have the table mounted. It's actually held in place by these brackets here. These things are what you can buy them from like JML and various hardware stores. They're basically things that allow you to put like brooms and stuff and stick them up in a cupboard. What you do is you take this off. As you can see, it's got a similar bracket on the underside here. This is just our own tabletop that we've made out of an old desk. Then if we fit it in place, slide it in. When it's set up, this thing's really solid. I designed this to be big enough to fit a MacBook Pro on it. I also use it sometimes if I'm making a coffee. I can fit my stove, my AeroPress and my mug all here as well too. Because it's on this sort of kind of bracket, it's not a perfectly smooth pipe, you can actually lean on it quite heavily and you can use it as a drawing table. See, when I'm doing my drawing, I like to use, the equivalent of a draftsman table that's up at an angle. And with this, you can actually lean on it quite nicely. You can have your notebook or whatever there and do all of your drawings. And when you want it out the way, you don't actually have to take it off and fit it to the back door there. I don't actually normally have it on the back door. That's only really because of this video. If I want it out the way, and Daisy, you're gonna have to maybe move. Yep, there we go. All you need to do, fold up like this. It stows up perfectly against the back of the seat. And again, it doesn't obstruct the door. You can keep it like this. This is how I normally drive with it because it does add a little bit of extra weight to the back door. This was about £90 in total, and I'm just referring to the two brackets and this pipe. It's a very niche product that I've struggled to find any alternatives to online. It's the same with this plate on the bottom. Because this is designed for a VW transporter, it doesn't fit exactly in this van. The van's a little bit too narrow for it. So you might be able to tell we actually had to cut the corners off this, and that's what allows it to turn fully on the confines of this van. But altogether, this was about £50–60. It was about £20 shipping, and then the universal runner plates were about 30–40 quid. However, for all the uses that it adds into the van and the extra kind of space that it gives you, without a doubt, the best money I've spent on the kind of modifications in here. One of the other things about this captain seat is it's also where the diesel heater is located. So you can see this is the output for it. You can actually turn around and direct the air somewhat. The actual air intake is on the back, just basically where your feet are if you were sitting on the passenger side. Now, I always wanted a diesel heater in here. They're really good if you want to go camping in the winter time. Obviously, we're in Scotland, so more often than not, even in the summer, you're trying to kind of heat up the van and keep it nice and warm and toasty. Now, originally I wanted to fit the diesel heater under the driver's seat, which is why there's this little kind of carpeted wooden box under there. In the end, we found it worked better underneath the passenger seat, but it actually gave us this nice little closed storage area, essentially, that we can have underneath the driver. For this, the actual diesel heater only takes up about this amount of space, roughly. On this side, we actually still have the original van jack that's sitting underneath there. That's where it's normally stored. Now, how it works is you've got air and fuel coming in. They're being burnt in the burn chamber, and then the hot air is coming out this way. But remember, it's not the exhaust fumes. All that's happening is there's a little fan blowing the air over the hot burn chamber. So all of the exhaust gas is obviously exhausted out of the van. The fuel is actually being drawn from the fuel tank. These things come with an external fuel tank. So obviously if you've got like a petrol vehicle, you can fill diesel into the external fuel tank, and that's what fuels the little heater. I didn't want to do any of that though. If you've ever spilt diesel inside a car, you'll know that it's not really something you want to be messing around with inside a place that you're going to sleep in. But what I ended up doing is actually running a cable and what I ended up doing is running a pipe and actually tapping into the fuel tank of the van. So we draw all the fuel from that. The air has been sucked in from the outside. It's been burnt in the burn chamber, and then the exhaust fumes are exhausting out the side of the van. Pretty simple system, really. It actually all runs off this tiny little screen up here. Different models have different variations on the screens that they're supplied with, but essentially it's got an on-off mode. You can have a timer, you can set the temperature. It also has an internal thermometer that tells the internal temperature of the van as well too. And there's also a little controller that I have. It's a little remote control that I leave at the back of the van. So if you're lying in bed, you can turn it on without having to crawl over here and put this on. Again, this van is very well insulated, so it doesn't lose heat that quickly. It's one of the things that I really intended the most when I was building this, is to make sure it was well insulated and it held in any heat, and as a result, you know, kept away any of the cold weather that was coming in. So since I've got the back door open here, I might as well show you all the different features and functions of my little multifunctional worktop that I've built. So there's quite a lot to it, but the first thing and the most important thing is this. It doesn't look very fancy, but this is my camera bag storage. I measured this out exactly so that I could fit my current camera bag, but also if I bought a larger one, this one's 45 litres, it would also fit in there too. It's slightly future-proofed. I have this thing, which is actually hooked up to the electrical supply. It's a little unit that has a USB-C and a USB-A charge point. It's got a 12-volt socket in there too for charging drone batteries, and it's got an on-off switch so that I can isolate it. This means that when I put my bag in here, I can run cables into the bag, charge all my cameras, all the spare batteries, all the drones and everything, and know that they're safe, and I know that they're charging in there, and I know I can get them at a moment's notice. Now, the other thing that I love about this, just above the wheel well, there was just enough space to fit in my tripod. It fits really neatly in there. It never moves, it never rattles. I actually carpeted the inside like I've carpeted the entire van so that it doesn't really make too much noise underway. I actually got this idea from a YouTuber called Thomas Heaton. He's a photographer, and his old motorhome used to have this little space where you could perfectly fit a tripod. So moving back, other essential in here, Crocs. Always carry a pair of Crocs with you. These things will probably outlast everything that's in this van. I've gone cliff diving with these. They've followed me on every adventure. My girlfriend absolutely loves them, which is why she's looking very angry behind the camera right now. Best thing ever. The thing that, again, I'm most proud of is I sized this perfectly to fit my 16-inch MacBook Pro with the little carry case that I bought for it. The laptop and stand and worktop setup is actually a really good way of sitting and doing editing. It's all sized really well. I actually do quite a lot of my voice recording in here as well too. You might have seen me end quite a few of my videos from here in the back of the van. Most of the time when I'm doing my work like this though, I actually tend to be sitting on the captain's seat with a little fold-out table. Now, above that is my little drawer. It's attached with a little latch here so that it can't open while you're underway. Now, generally speaking, this is a junk drawer, but as you'll probably get used to over the course of this tour, It's full of camera stuff. You've got this, which is a Nikon EOS 3. This tends to be the camera or the film camera that I take with me to most places because it's actually a waterproof camera. You can actually go diving with this. It was made in the 1960s or 70s. Absolutely fantastic wee camera. I've got my Game Boy SP in here. If you watched my video about my 1989 Suzuki Super Carry, I had a PSP in there. I don't actually tend to take the PSP as much with me anymore because we've got a Nintendo Switch, but I've really got back into playing my Nintendo SP as well. So that stays in here right now. Now, underneath here is probably it's not so much the least used, it's just the cupboard that I don't really have a specific purpose for. I sized this up so that it would actually fit this camera bag in it. And this camera bag is where I keep my Pentax 6.7. It's a massive medium format camera. It's quite delicate, you know, it was made in like the 1970s. So under there, it's out of the way, it's nice and safe. This case is also padded. The final bit of this long side of the worktop that I'm really proud of is this little toiletry shelf. And it's designed so that when you're lying in bed and your head is here, you can still reach in and grab all of this stuff, either when you're going to sleep or when you wake up in the morning. Now, we added this bit in at the very end, and I quite like it. It's just a general shelf. I don't tend to keep that much up here because, again, when you're driving along the way, this is prime for shaking about and making a lot of noise. But this is generally how it's set out. You've got the maps section. So I've got this basically so that I can have all the maps that I'm driving to or I know that I'm going to be in the area of. Further down, got the midgie section. So you've got your midgie net and smidge, which is just like basically stops midgies from biting you. I've got my mugs and my Harris Tweed hip flask, and then I've got this. I'll tell you about this later on, but this is part of the electrical system. So from here, you can turn on the voltage, you can turn on the 12-volt socket or the USB sockets that I have here. Some of them are blank, and some of them are left blank intentionally for if or when we put lighting into the ceiling up here. Because currently the only light that we've got back here is this and this one here. I tend to find this is sufficient, especially when you put up the little fairy lights all around here. But in the future, what we'd like to do is little recessed lights into this lovely wooden ceiling that we've built in too. So best thing about this van is these doors open flush. Most vans do this, to be fair, but it means that you can have a nice big open space, and on a nice day like this, rarely happens in Scotland after August. Now, this here is the kitchen area, shall we say. Under here, I've got two slides which open out, and in here I've got all of my cooking supplies. Now, there's not that many of them. It's quite basic, but again, I wasn't really using this van as a place to live out of. It was more just I had this stuff if I wanted to make a meal for, you know, a couple of nights stay out, something like that. We've got a little fold-out basin as well, quite nice for washing up. We've got this, which is a fold-out chair. We'll use some fancy editing and this will just be complete. So yeah, really nice seat, really enjoy this thing. Got it off Amazon. I could actually do with two of them. Really, this thing is most useful, I think, if you've got a couple, so that you can open up the thing, set it up here, but also you can sit here quite comfortably. And one of my favorite things is, right, you're sitting here, but you also need another seat, say. You could sit on the end of this, but for the final trick of this little table, this here, these things are actually used for securing the bed, but we've sized it perfectly. So you can sit that there. You can sit like this. And this is a much better sitting position because you're a little bit higher up, you know, you're more at seat level. And what you can actually do is put a cushion here and basically build like a little L-shaped couch in the back, which is quite nice as well. Again, one of my favorite things, I like it when stuff has like 2 or 3 functions to it. And the fact that this table folds away into the door or can be used back there, and you can tip it and use it as a little drawing table or whatever. And then if you want, you can use it as a seat here, is really, really nice. Now, for the actual kitchen setup, we've got all of our stuff in here, but I've also built this little fold-away table. If you're doing photography stuff, it's really nice as well too, because you can have all your camera gear set out here. I can have my camera bag at the side, these drawers open. I can be assembling everything over here. Oftentimes when I do a photography shoot, I kind of pull the van up, back, open up all these doors, and then I've got access to absolutely everything I need. Really, really handy. So in here as well, I try to keep it quite sparse just so that I don't have it constantly full of gear. So if you want to throw some extra stuff in here, there's plenty of space for that. I've got a little first aid kit that I have bolted up here. I've got an air compressor just in case, you know, you got puncture or something like that. The other thing I have in here is an umbrella, always quite handy. I was actually using this umbrella yesterday to film this video because the rain was so unbelievably heavy. The thing that I'm actually proudest of in here is this little bar. This thing here disconnects the front and the back, pulls out, and it's just a broom with these two little D-shackles at either end. But the reason it exists, D-shackle goes in here, other D-shackle goes in here, and now what you have is a nice, steady, solid locking bar that stops these doors from blowing shut. Absolutely love this. I saw this on a YouTube channel of a guy called Lens of James, who actually had converted an NV200 like mine. And he had a bunch of little fun ideas that he put into it that I took inspiration from. And also, I don't have it with me right now, but I have a tarpaulin that goes over the top of this. So what you can actually do is, you can use this as the centerpiece, the tent pole, if you will, and you can put this tarpaulin over the top, and then it allows you to actually work and stand under here in the rain. And then, of course, to remove these, all you need to do, press the handles at the back, just unlocks it, nice and easy. And like I say, it secures under the bed. You'd never even really know it was there. And if you get attacked, you can smash people with it. Now, the final thing that we have in here is potentially the most important in the entire van. I've got this pocket here, which I normally use for this. It's travel towels, got a couple of them. But what we have in here is Daisy's jacket. So yeah, that is kind of all of the kitchen stuff, the stuff that I've got fitted onto the doors. My favourite thing though is this down here, which is my little miniature workshop. Remember I said that I wanted to be able to carry all my tools with me. That's one of the reasons I've got that saw in there. And what I've done is I've designed this miniature little garage, as I call it, at the bottom. So essentially what we have here is this little drawer with this perfectly sized toolbox set inside it. The toolbox I actually bought after we built all of this. I was just really lucky to find one that fit so perfectly. But essentially what you do, pull this out, and what you have now is access to this. It's a pretty basic set, but I've got all sorts of assorted bits and pieces. I've got my, what is it, Zollstock? Zollstock, and I've got my Schenner's spirit level, very old spirit level in there. But what I love is, what you do, when you have it locked, what you do is you lift it off, but in here you've got all the other stuff that didn't fit inside the toolbox. Now the little shelf itself has a custom cut old cutting board in here. I carry some spare pencils and bits and pieces in here as well too. At the back here, I've got my drill. This is a Parkside drill, which I think is Lidl's internal tools company. Then we've got a small ratchet set. Unfortunately, I left this open in a shed for a couple of months and everything got this lovely patina of rust on it, but still works perfectly well. Measuring tape, miniature hammer, full-size hammer. What do you call this? Shifter, Swiss Army knife in here. I've had this since I was about 10 years old. Little miniature WD-40. I mean, obviously, everyone needs a WD-40. Got a little spirit level in here that all sticks up there as well too. You can actually store stuff underneath this little sliding shelf. So I keep pens. This doesn't really cut it for most jobs on a vehicle. So I've got my main ratchet set up here. It's actually secured up here. I bolted a big metal plate to it and it sits up on a bunch of really powerful magnets on the roof of this little garage area. The only problem is I put it in upside down, so you've got to always make sure and put it the right way up before you open it. I've also got a little vise up here. I don't use it very much, but it's very cute, so it's quite nice to have. And also, I have this thing. This is, I might have mentioned it before, I do keep water on board. This actually is the back of the little toiletry shelf. So it's basically, I just cut a hole in it, slides in there perfectly, and because that's carpeted and because it's quite tight, it never ever moves. Okay, it's the moment you've all been waiting for though. How does this entire bed system fold out? Remember, I wanted a full double bed that me, a girl and a dog could all sleep in without compromising the access of the two doors here, and without it creating too much obstructions when you have it folded out into like a bench like this. I also wanted to leave it clear so that if you were sitting on that kind of passenger seat swiveled around, it wasn't going to take up too much room there either. So it was a lot to kind of plan out and think about, but I think I got something worked out. My dad came up with this kind of triangular idea that you're about to see. But you might have noticed I've got this odd like backrest here. This is actually the end of the bed. So the first thing you do, and the reason I closed all the doors is to show you can do this without having to open any of the doors. So again, it's a horrible stormy night outside. You just want to get the bed set up. It's easy enough to do. First thing you've got to do is take this stuff out. These are the aluminium covers that can go on the windows. Then what you do, you pull this down. You can see it's kind of being held in place here by a couple of blocks. Pull that down. And then as you can see, this is just a big triangular piece of wood secured on the bottom with carpeting on the top. And it just slots into place on this little corner here. And now you've created yourself a nice platform. This is where your legs go. Now, also behind this is the cushions. This is just a little bit of memory foam. I bought a big roll of memory foam from Amazon. My mum then cut this fabric into these pillows. There's just like cushion slips basically that it's all slipped in on. We just bought this fabric on a big roll along with the foam and then cut them all to size. Obviously I've no idea how to use a sewing machine, so she did all that for me. As you see, my dad built the inside of the van and my mum did all of the upholstery. But you're thinking, well, where does this bit come in? Well, put this over here and you might be able to tell there's a hinge that runs along here. Pull this over and you have yourself a full double bed. Sometimes what I'll do, if I'm camping, I'll take a duvet with me. So I'll leave a duvet here, I'll roll it up on the bench seat when I'm underway, and then you just unfurl that, maybe a couple of pillows as well. Really, really comfortable. If you don't have that with you, because I don't want to obviously carry a giant duvet everywhere I go, I have the Voigt blanket. Now, these things are amazing. They're expensive. I think they were maybe actually a Kickstarter to begin with, but they work really, really well. It just looks like a cushion. I actually saw this on another van tour, and the moment I saw it, I knew I wanted it. But yeah, looks like just a cushion. You can just keep it like that. But as you can see, if you unfold it, it turns into a full duvet. And a very comfortable one and a very warm one at that. Now, the other thing you can do with this, the reason I love it, you can just use it as a duvet like this. So you could perfectly easily sleep like this. But the other thing is it's got buttons along the side. So if you wanted, you can button this up and turn it into a full sleeping bag. And you can actually literally slide inside it and sleep in it just like it's a sleeping bag. You can then roll it up and then put it into the sleeping bag holder if you want. Some of the best, I'm not even joking, some of the best sleeps of my life I have gotten sleeping in this because it is so warm, it's so comfortable and cozy. You've got the carpeting running over everything, and then you've just piles of blankets. That's what you want. A big duvet. I actually used it. I bought a king size duvet for in here because you fold the duvet in half and you get even more comfort. And then you've got the Voigt blanket. You've got a couple of extra pillows. It's absolutely fantastic. I usually leave the captain seat folded around, and as I mentioned, you can just have the captain seat there. The door is completely accessible. You can still get out this door if you want quite easily, but you can fully stand up, get out there, leave your shoes, grab your camera gear. Everything's still accessible. There's one other thing you can do with this. How you saw me set this up initially with the kind of bench area isn't normally how I have this set up, and I'll show you how I normally do it. You can actually set up the back here, and I have a separate thing to hold it in place here. And once this is in place, you can just use this as almost like a big couch. This is how I normally have it set up, where you can just sit like this. Really good if there's two of you. One person can sit on the little captain seat area, one person can sit here. It's like a day bed, basically. Out of all the kind of engineering of this van, this bed is the thing that I'm most proud of. We didn't compromise on the size, we didn't compromise on the comfort, and we also didn't compromise on the usability of the van. When the bed's set up, you can still use this. If anything, it's more useful. You've got yourself like a big load floor up here and you can stuff your bags underneath the bed. So since it is, well, raining and pretty nasty out there, I figured we'd come into the garage and I'll tell you a little bit more about the electrical system that I've built into this, and also a little bit about how we insulated and built out the van when we first got it. So one of the things about this van that I always found really interesting is that the engine is really low down. There's a 2-litre diesel in here, but it's really low in comparison to the kind of top of the bonnet. And it almost feels like you could fit another engine on top of it. And that's kind of what we did with the battery. You can see the battery's higher up here, but this is the leisure battery that I purchased. The starter battery is further down there. And essentially what we did is we built a new battery tray that's held against the bulkhead above the starter battery. And then we've got all the gubbins that charges the leisure battery as you're underway. And of course, when you turn the van off, all the electrics, like the lights and the charge points that you've seen throughout the van on this tour, are all run off this thing. Now, I think it's an 85 amp hour battery. It's quite small, but then again, all I'm running is a few lights, maybe a few more in the future, and a couple of charge points. The biggest draw that this battery takes is really the diesel heater. There's quite a large amount of power used in the initial startup phase, but once the diesel heater's running, it doesn't really use much at all. It really sips on diesel and it sips on electricity at quite a small rate. So you could run the heater all night and it probably wouldn't drain the battery. Although again, with this van, because it's so small, you don't really need to. So I think the kit that fits this, the alternator, the leisure battery, some other stuff like the new battery tray, all came to about £120. And then of course the biggest thing with this that I like the most is the fact that it's in the engine compartment. I know a lot of vans have their leisure battery somewhere in the back compartment, and I know actually a lot of vans have the starter battery underneath the driver's seat. But for me it's just quite nice knowing all the electrics, all of this stuff is confined to here, where there's a firewall between obviously the cabin and the sleeping compartment. So aside from these little electrical things, the biggest modification that I made up front here was this. I swapped out the old radio with this lovely doubled-in touchscreen head unit. And this thing was expensive. It's a Kenwood model and it cost me, I think, over £400. It's very expensive. But look, there was a couple of things that I wanted that turned out to be surprisingly hard to find together. So I wanted Android Auto, or Apple CarPlay, sorry, in my case. And obviously, look, I know everything has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay now, but I wanted it with a capacitive touchscreen so that when you are scrolling along, like your phone, it responds to your fingerprint, rather than this stupid system that so many cars still have, and so many of these kind of secondary unit systems where it's a resistive touchscreen. You've got to like push your finger into the screen to actually get it to respond to you. I absolutely hate them. And I thought, well, look, if I'm going to go to the trouble of removing this and fitting in a new thing, I might as well buy the thing that I really wanted to buy. And this thing has been fantastic. It's an incredibly bright, clear screen. I can obviously scroll through all my apps. I can use it split, so I can have my current playing podcast here. I can have my maps there. Absolutely love it. Really, really nice. I listen mainly to podcasts when I'm on the road, and the podcasts app in the Apple CarPlay is really, really fantastic. Now, the final and most niche thing about this is I wanted an auxiliary input, which is quite obvious, really. You know, I wanted something so that I could plug in my iPod. I actually had to remove the auxiliary input for this van because it didn't work with this. It was a proprietary Nissan thing for the old stereo. But the other thing about this is this is no ordinary cable. I spent a long time tracking one of these down. This is new old stock from an Apple store from the early 2000s. This is a video output cable for an iPod Classic. This is technically the, I forget what generation it is, but the iPod Video. So this was the first of the iPods that allowed you to play music videos, TV shows, movies, all of that sort of thing. And what I can do with this, I can plug this in and I can actually play videos on here from my iPod, which I don't think there's any car in the world that has an entertainment system built around movies and TV shows playing from an iPod Classic 5th generation. But it's what I wanted, and it's what I got. So the final thing that is probably worth going into a bit of detail about is insulating and carpeting this van. Also the ceiling and the floors that I put in too. I want to do that really properly. Look, I know that looking around, some of this looks a little bit homemade, and I use quite a lot of reclaimed materials in this build, which I'm really proud of. It's very much custom to me, but this whole thing, carpeting it, the flooring, the roofing, and especially the insulation, I wanted to get done really properly. I didn't want to have to take it all apart after a couple of years because I found I'd done something wrong. And I also wanted it to be that if I ever took all of this apart, I knew that the fundamentals were correct. You know, again, the carpeting, the insulation, all of that stuff. So this stuff is done to a very high degree, even if I do say so myself. And I spent a lot of time and money getting it right, and I researched it heavily before I got into it. So first of all, sound deadening, then insulation. The sound deadening came in the form of sound deadening panels from a company called Dodomat. They're a British company. It's Amazing stuff. And what they do is you stick them on the inside of the van. Every single panel that is in contact with the outside, you stick it all to it. Now what this stuff does is it creates more rigidity in the metal. And you can actually see it in some of the videos I took in the before and after. When you tap the van, the empty panels rattle. They boom slightly. You notice that when you drive underway in an empty van as well too. But once I put in that deadening, nothing. Completely solid. It was an amazing thing. So sound deadening is now all in here, and to show you the difference, exact same panels. This one doesn't have sound deadening. This one does. So normal and deadened. And then down here, down here. The second thing I put in was something called the Dodo Mat Liner, I believe. Essentially, a little bit of thin foam, like almost the equivalent of spray foam, but on a roll mat that has a sticky back. And again, you cut it all out, stick it on the inside on top of the deadening mats, and it gives you the first proper layer of insulation. It's not much, but it certainly adds that little bit of, again, sound deadening, rigidity, and a little bit of insulation on the inside. So I coated everything, every single wheel well, inside every panel, every single door. I put them all over the ceiling. I got the entire van completely coated within an inch of its life. Final thing that I did is I then put a layer of Dodo fleece in the walls. That's this stuff. Again, similar thing by Dodo Mat. I'll leave a link in the description below. This stuff is actually shredded bottles, I believe. So basically balled all of that up, stuffed it into every single cavity. Again, put it down all the way into the different cavities around the walls and the bulkheads. And then I found old offcuts of Kingspan, the stuff that you put into a house, and any available gaps that I could fit it in, I also put that onto it. We then cut custom panels out of plywood and we stuck those to either side. It was very difficult to do and get them all sized out correctly. We made a very complex cardboard stencil and then my dad used a jigsaw to perfectly cut it out, and then we stuck them to both sides there. Now with that done, we moved on to the floor. For the floor, this is actually the original wooden floor that was in here, but I took that up and I put down another product called Dodo Liner, I believe. And Dodo Liner is like the deadening mats combined with the insulating sticky pads. So essentially you've got this like thin bit of metal that runs through the entire roll, and then it's got a really sticky bit on the bottom, and then it's got the foam on the top. So it means that you basically don't have to do the two coats. I unrolled that, stuck it down on the floor. It took quite a while. We used a heat gun basically to heat up the glue to get it really nice and sticky, and then I layered the floor on top. And then finally, after all of that was done, we put in the insulation on the ceiling. Now for the ceiling, the ceiling had like ribs basically going along it that gave the roof rigidity. We cut little bits of wood that perfectly matched the ribs on the inside here, and that would give us a place that we could tack the roof onto. Before we actually fitted in the tongue and groove roof though, I did the same thing. I put in the Dodo deadening mats, which is a bit of a tongue twister. I then put in the roof liner, the sticky pads that I put into the walls. I put in a little bit of the leftover Dodo fleece. I put in some of the leftover Kingspan insulation panels, and I also got spray foam, spray insulation, and I sprayed that into the cavities of the ribs that were in the top there so that nothing could come out, because I figured all the heat you were going to lose would be the heat rising up to the top and then dissipating out through the ceiling. Once all of that was done, we put in this lovely wooden roof. My dad did this. It's absolutely beautiful. Before we fitted it, we actually did put up one of those silver foil blankets, basically the stuff that some people think works as insulation but actually doesn't. And once all that was done, we put in the carpeting. This is what you call four-way stretch carpeting. What we used is contact adhesive, sprayed the contact adhesive on the back and onto the walls, pushed it into place, and then you basically use manipulating tools and little carpeting tools to push it into all of these little gaps. And I'm really proud of what we did. We did a really good job. I don't want to blow my own trumpets, but like this is a really good job. Everything's really tight. My dad even removed the rear light panel and carpeted around it and then put it back in place, which looks absolutely fantastic. And I've had no problems so far with any of it coming off. I used a lot of contact adhesive, to be fair, so it should stick for quite some time. I wouldn't like to do it again though. It took a long time to get everything in, get everything right. I was sitting out here in this garage in the middle of March and April every night after work, basically getting this done. And I'm proud that we did it, but my God, it was. Well, I think that is that. A very brief and thorough look at every single aspect of this van. As I've made this video, I've realised there's actually loads of stuff I didn't talk about, but I'm not going to subject you to more of that. I might put something up on my Patreon page. I actually did an exclusive video on my Patreon page about the diesel heater a while back, so I might do a few more about specific aspects of the van, potentially, if people are interested in that. But yeah, a lot of really nice memories in this van. Making this video has been really nice. It's been like a trip down memory lane for the past couple of years, looking through all of this footage, all the really fun stuff, work with my dad to do a lot of this. It's been really, really nice and a really educational journey because I'd never done any of this before, and I'm amazed how well it's come out by the end. The other thing is, this is the van that I met my girlfriend in, or potentially the van that I met my girlfriend with, because, you know, maybe if she hadn't seen the van, she wouldn't have decided to stay with me. Actually, I'm not even joking with that, because like the day before, so we'd been talking online, we were like, we should meet up, you know, we should definitely meet up. And then I was like, great, we'll go do it. The night beforehand, I suddenly realized, hold on, the van is not ready at all. It's like a complete state. And I'd been telling her about this van and what I've been working on. Oh, it's going to be this camper van conversion. So none of this was in. There was no ceiling or carpeting or anything like that. But I managed to get this bench built the day beforehand. Raced for the ferry, got on, but I had a trick up my sleeve. I knew she liked Gilmore Girls, so what I ended up doing is I made this look sign. I'm now a big fan of Gilmore Girls as a result, and I basically turned the interior of this place into like a little coffee shop. So we met up, we said hello, opened the door, she sees it, she's like, oh my God, this is absolutely amazing. I actually got a really popular TikTok out of it as a result, so, you know, it's a double win for that. For that. And yeah, it was really nice. And, you know, look, the rest is history. Now she gets to be the lucky woman who holds the camera as I show you guys my van. so yeah, a lot of really nice memories in this van. It's been really good fun. And you're probably thinking, wait, hold on then. So why do you want to sell it? Well, the simple answer is the fact that when I bought this, I was a single man, a bachelor, and now I have a girlfriend and a relatively large dog. And the van's actually perfectly sized for them. You can sleep. Designed this bed for two, and apparently a dog now to sleep in. But the real issue is there's no passenger side airbag on this. And when you're on your own, that's fine. But if you're doing longer journeys and you've got somebody next to you and they don't have an airbag, it's just, well, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a pretty essential safety feature. And it's kind of crazy to think, even a commercial van being sold without a passenger side airbag in the front. There's also not a great place to secure the dog. There is a part in here where the seat belts would be if there was rear seats. But we do a lot of longer journeys. We've been driving through Europe this year. We'd like to go to Europe again in the car. So we'd like something that's a little bit better for longer journeys, that's a little bit safer as well, potentially. And it's a shame. Like I say, the van would be perfectly suited to a lot of that, but it's just, you know, one of the features of it. So we might, like I say, look at getting rid of it. I need to reduce my fleet of vehicles. I've got this. I still have my 1989 Suzuki Super Caddy. I know I really need to get rid of it. It's been sitting in that shed for far too long. I've got my Suzuki Jimny still as well. So yeah, I need to downsize slightly before I think about buying anything else. But you might see another YouTube video about me in the future buying more odd vehicles. Who knows? So yeah, that is about it though. If you'd like to watch other videos by me, there is my tour of my 1989 Suzuki Super Caddy. I'd say go watch my video tour of my Suzuki Jimny. I really like that video. Shows more of my, like I say, odd fleet that I have. And also my video on the sunken Scottish villages that I was exploring last year, 2021. I made that video by driving there in this. It was my first adventure, basically, with this van. So, yeah. But anyway, time for me to get to bed. Thank you very much for watching. Good night.